Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee for Tuesday, February 6, 2024. Are there any potential conflicts of interest? I don't see any. Citizens' comments? Citizens' comments. One more time, citizens' comments. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Minutes of the January 16th, 2024 meeting, bills and payroll, monthly position and control report, and report of personnel actions.
Second.
So, okay, motion by Ed, second by Brian. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Seeing none. We will skip over number 5 because there was nothing removed. Number 6, request to recommend council approval of budget resolution 02-2024, just one 2024. Increasing the 2024 Recreation Department 2nd Street Community Center repairs and maintenance supplies account by $4,524.90. This will be presented by Jennifer Zielinski, Finance Director. Jennifer.
Good evening. This is a good news situation. We had uncovered in an account that was sitting on our books as a liability of a donation that we traced it back to 2014. The details that we could find about the donation was that it was meant for parks and recreation. So you can think of this, the old method of accounting for donations and certain future spending would have been for the city to put it in a liability account, much like we did for our PEP account, but it's not a true liability because we don't owe anybody an actual invoice. This was a donation for a purpose. So what we have done at the end of 2023 is put that as a restricted reserve on our fund balance. And now, because we discovered this too late in the year to actually budget for this, we're coming forth with the budget resolution where the funding source was that old donation from 2014, utilizing the city's fund balance. So with that, I would recommend council that the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee recommend council approval of budget resolution 02-2024 for 2nd Street Community Center improvements.
Thank you, Jennifer. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
So we have a motion by Brian. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Natasha. Are there any questions from the committee? Andrew, do you have a question or was?
No, that was a second.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Seeing none. Number 7, request to recommend council approval to renew an existing lease with the Marshfield Area Community Foundation for office space within the 2nd Street Community Center. This will be presented by Steve Barg, City Administrator. Steve.
Thank you very much. In late 2018, the council did approve and we signed an agreement with the Marshfield Area Community Foundation to occupy about 400 square feet of office space in the 2nd Street Community Center. They've been here for been there actually for the 5 years since. It's gone very well, very good arrangement, worked very positively for both sides. It really should have been brought forward for renewal at the end of 2023. It flew below the radar somehow and was flagged a couple weeks ago. And we've been talking with them about renewing it for another 5-year period. What you have before you is an agreement that would run from 24 through 28. So another 5-year term. The lease rate that we started with was $440 a month. We've been increasing it annually by the CPI, so we're at just a couple dollars under $500 now. That would be the starting point for the new lease, and the proposal is to increase it by the CPI for the years to come to keep up with inflation. So with that in mind, other terms are generally the same. There is an addition of a termination clause that was recommended by city staff. But apart from that, it's the same document that you approved 5 years ago, those of you who are here. Staff would recommend that the committee recommend council approval to execute another 5-year lease with the Marshfield Area Community Foundation for space at the 2nd Street Community Center.
Thank you, Steve. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Brian. Is there a second? Second by Andrew. Any questions from the committee? Go ahead, Ed.
Yes, thank you. The
the foundation didn't request this termination thing, the staff did. Why is that? What did you want in there?
It's the idea that there's no reference to any possibility of, the city being able to remove the tenant for failure to comply with any terms of the agreement. In other words, can we remove them for, I won't say breach of contract, but the type of things that they might do that would create a problem. That's basically what it is. If you read clause 16.
I did.
It says in the event the tenant fails to comply, the landlord shall notify the tenant and give them time to leave. And my understanding is that the community foundation had no problem with that. There's no problems in the 5 years they've been there at all. It's been very peaceful and quiet and good. We just thought that was something that might be appropriate to add. And I know that that's probably because we have that in other contracts in some cases, at least giving us a chance to remove somebody if they're creating some problem. And that's probably the thought with the Second Street Community Center and all the activities going on there.
I also noticed that well, I thought the language was a little on the harsh side on the thing, but I guess I take it you to copy that from some other how-to book.
Well, I don't know about how-to book. We've had this in other leases. I can't point to one right now, but that kind of clause that gives us the right to remove somebody for cause. It does sound harsh, and given the fact that the Community Foundation has been a very good tenant for us, was it needed or not? But it was recommended, and they appear to have signed on to it without question, from what I can tell.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you. Just a quick one here. Mr. Bard, on section C, D, and E, where we're adding language about signage and limited use meeting room space. And this is probably just more me being a weirdo, but are we going to clean up that language? Because it doesn't read really well with landlord agrees to that it shall and then signage, whereas A, B, and C does read. I mean, I get the gist of that language. Are we going to clean it up though so it reads a little bit better?
Yeah, well, maybe it doesn't read as well as it could. We could maybe look at tweaking that if need be. The purpose, again, for the signage is because when the Community Foundation first came there was discussion about what signage the city needed to provide for them. And, did it need to be separate signage outside the building and calling attention to the fact that they were there? At first, they were concerned that nobody knew they were there. So that's the premise for it. Does it word real well? I guess we can take another look at that.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, I understand why it's there, and I've got no problem with it. I was just wondering if we can make it read a little bit easier. It might help everything.
Okay.
But that's all. I had more of a comment than a question. So thank you, guys.
We can take a look at that between now and the going to the council in a week. I do want to add to what I said to Councilmember Wagner a minute ago, too. If you look at the last sentence of section 16, that really is for both of us. That either side can give 6 months notice and terminate if they need to for some reason. And that was not in the prior agreement. So that does work in favor of both the Community Foundation and the city.
Any further questions from the committee? We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign? Seeing none. 8, request to recommend council approval of a 1-month extension of the contract for economic development services with Cedar Corporation and the appointment of a team to review and make a recommendation on the selection of a firm to contract with these services effective April 1st, 2024, presented by Steve Bark, City Administrator.
Thank you, Chairperson. Well, you may recall back on December 19th, just a couple of days before Christmas, our last meeting, I brought forth to do another 3-month extension with Cedar Corporation for economic development related services with that firm. And of course, Josh Miller is our representative. Concern was raised about the fact that we had several of these extensions and we hadn't really bid it out to other companies that perform the services in question. And there are other firms across Wisconsin that do that. So the council at that time agreed to a 2-month, not a 3-month, but a 2-month extension through February 29th of 2024. I came back from vacation. I didn't get on it right away, but I did start looking up who does this kind of work. And last week I did send out a request for proposals, or actually request for qualification to 7 firms in Wisconsin that are qualified. You know their names if I, excuse me, if I were to go through them. Give me a second here. I apologize. They are Cedar Corporation, Ellers, MSA, Verbicker, Van de Waal, SCH, and Redevelopment Resources. And I've had responses from a couple of them that they're looking at doing a proposal. A couple of others have said that they don't have the staffing to do that. But anyway, we take people sending us their information by February 22nd, and then get a team on that, perhaps a team of staff and council members together, however you want to fashion that, and then have them go through that and recommend somebody to bring to the council for approval on March 12th would be my plan. Now, part of the reason this plays in our favor, to be quite frank with you, is that on February 26th, we're going to have the first day of Carrie Edmondson, our new Assistant City Administrator / Community Development Director. So it is kind of nice that she will be able to be a part of this process. And actually that we'll have, if you approve this, that Josh will be with us for another month to be part of that transition to help her get familiar with some of the projects that we're working on. So the timing may actually be very good. But then the organization that we choose would start on April 1st and would presumably be for another 3-month contract through June 30th. Now, there's a conversation that's been going on in the backdrop for a while. I think we all know this. We're going to hire an associate, or we're going to hire a planner after we hire, we've hired Carrie. And then what do we do with the economic development piece? We've talked about an economic development specialist, a lower level economic development person, or continuing a contract with a firm to do that work at 10 hours a week, perhaps more than 10 hours a week, as a different way of handling it. And Carrie would get a chance to be part of that discussion with council and staff as well. So that might all work out, again, well for us. But out of all that, my recommendation is following this particular schedule to recommend the council, committee give council approval recommendation for a 1-month extension with Cedar Corporation through March 31st of 2024, during which time we finish out the RFQ process and select somebody to potentially then choose for services beginning April 1 of 2024.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep.
Question, do we have a motion?
I move to extend the contract for 1 month.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Natasha, second by Brian. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Ed.
Okay, thank you. Is it really necessary that we have form another committee? Why can't we just bring it to finance, budget, and personnel?
You could do that on March 5th. I just thought that maybe you'd want to have, again, I know you and I have talked about this before. I think sometimes it's good to be off on the side, kind of going through the materials in writing. I don't know how much they'll submit. They might submit a couple pages. They might submit 20 pages. I don't know. But if this body wants to review them on March 5th or 4th, whatever day that meeting is, and go through it and make a recommendation at that time, that's fine as well.
The reason I say that, I think that we're getting a lot of scattered on it. We got a special committee for everything. And basically it comes back to the council as whole cloth, take it or leave it. That's what it is. I'd like to see the standing committees get more involved in that, especially finance, budget, and personnel with this particular project. So I'd like to propose an amendment to it that the reference to the team, or what would you call it? Yeah, team. Reference to the team be deleted, and you substitute the finance, budget, and personnel committee, where that is. That's a motion.
Steve, did you have something you wanted to say?
I'll wait till after it's second, if it's okay.
Second.
What I wanted to add is then, do you want to have potential for interviews with the firms, or okay, so that would be subsequent to, depending upon how the meeting goes before finance, budget, and personnel, whether you feel you want to interview one or more firms after that. Got it.
I have a question then. So I'm trying to think how this would work. I feel like this would still be special meetings of this committee then.
If you want to,
when would the interviews occur? I mean, the interviews are going to occur during the daytime, most likely. And RFPs are like very detailed. I mean, it's a lot of time.
it'd be similar to what you looked at doing with the Labor Law Council a couple of years ago. And ultimately what you did was you did have a separate time where the committee as a whole met in the conference room and talked with 3 firms. Again, that's your choice whether you want to go to that level of detail or if you want to ask them to come to a meeting of this body, on a regular meeting.
Yeah,
Whatever your pleasure.
I'm just trying to see what it looks like, because I really don't feel like we can do that during a regular meeting. I don't see how that would be possible.
I can tell you, you probably won't get 7 proposals. In fact, I already heard from 2 of them saying that they don't have the manpower, if you will, to dedicate to the project right now. So you may, at the end of the day, see only 2 or 3 or maybe 4. I don't know.
And if I might, Madam Chairman,
Sure.
I'm not suggesting that we try and make it part of our regular meetings. I would suggest that there would be a special meeting to do that, and as long as we could get a quorum up, would be okay. I'd be fine with that. So that's how I envision it happening, and I hope it works out.
Okay, I mean, that clarifies it a little. I was just trying to picture it happening like at this time of the night, and I'm like, oh, no, that's going to work out. Because, I mean, we generally do like to have interviews. I mean, normally the way the RFP process for me, at least, has been is we get the information, we whittle it down, then we bring in interviewees, then we discuss it again, and then we bring recommendation. So
Correct.
I don't think that has changed.
You're right, and you do have time before April 1st. I mean, if you just decided, okay, we're going to meet on April 5th, we're going to look at what we get, it may be 4, maybe 3, maybe 2, whatever, and we'll decide at that time if we feel the need to interview, and then you'll have time to fit that in, and maybe have a final approval by the council later in the month. So there is room.
Do you have a draft of the RFQ?
Yeah, it was really just 1 page, and I can share that.
Could you make that available to us,
Yeah,
please?
absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Natasha.
Okay, I'm just clarifying. So we've now changed to, instead of a team, which would maybe have been 1 or 2 members of this committee, now it will be open to anyone on the committee, but still be a separate meeting. Am I clarifying that? Okay. Is that right?
Well, I think what Ed is suggesting is that the first piece of this would be at a regular meeting. That on your meeting on Tuesday, tell me if I'm wrong, Ed, that on your meeting on Tuesday, the 4th or 5th it is, I guess, of March, that you would take a look at the proposals publicly here and say, okay, let's take a look at what we've got. And it looks like out of these 4, 2 of them are good. Let's interview those 2 separately. Am I on the right track?
That's good, yeah. That would work very well, and then there could be a special meeting to interview them one day at a time or whatever.
Right.
Okay, so I have a couple more questions. Is that normally done in an open meeting? Does that affect because they've already given their we already know what they're going to charge and all of that stuff. So it's not like it's going to change a bid or anything like that. Is that right?
Yeah, I think if I can have a little liberty for a moment here, I think what it's really going to come down to probably is going to be how good you feel about the services, the people, the strength of what they have to offer, their experience. I really think that the rates you're going to see are not going to vary a whole lot, between one company and another in terms of what they charge for time and materials. It'll be more a sense of who you feel is the best to do the job for us. And I shouldn't say that because maybe the price will be different than I expect, but we don't have to necessarily talk about the hourly rates here. We can publicly. The main thing is, who do we have and what do they do for us?
And I could be wrong on this, but it seems like having that televised publicly might not be the best situation. Maybe it would be better as a committee situation with an open door.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't anticipate this first step being publicly done, but again, it's the call of the committee. Whatever you think is best.
Andrew, did you have something?
Yeah, just a quick question here. Do we foresee us doing another 3 months after this first 3 months, or do we foresee us filling in positions within City Hall and then not renew it after these 3 months?
What I wrote in the RFP that you'll see when or RFQ, I guess, that when I send it to you after this meeting is that it would be a 3-month period from April 1 to June 30th that we're asking them to quote on, and it's possible it may be extended for periods beyond that. And that's dependent upon whether we choose to go the way of hiring a staff person or to just stay with contract services for the time being, for the indefinite future until we get everything sorted out in that department.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, go ahead, Natasha.
I mean, I would almost say that might be more efficient and also using the expertise of staff who use these services to have the RFPs come and then you guys rank them. Here are our top 2 or 3 people that then we could look at, and then maybe a special committee could interview. I'm just thinking that, you know, Tom obviously is going to understand what services he needs, and he's going to be able to look at that. And Sarah's going to be able to look and say, you know, like all these different people are going to have their expertise and be able to say, yeah, this looks like a really good product. So I feel like it might be better use of time to have them initially look at it, but I know that's not what you're thinking. So I don't know. I think, anyhow, that's my opinion.
We have literally done it every way imaginable over the last few years. We've done it where, like I mentioned, the labor law, well, that was entirely the council going through the 3 candidates and then ultimately, you know, going through the proposals and having the interviews in the public conference room. We've had the opposite where staff baked it and then brought it to the elected officials and said, here's what we think. We've had, in recent years, we've had a hybrid where we've had maybe 3 council members and 2 staff people on a committee going through them and then bringing them forward what they think are the best ones. So, I mean, again, there's not a right answer. It just depends on what you want this process to look like.
Anybody have anything else? So, okay. Do you know the motion?
Right now, we are voting on an amendment to the original motion, which would change the review team to the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee.
Okay. So we'll vote on the amendment first. So any questions on go ahead, Natasha.
Okay, we're just clarifying. So this motion would say that instead of going to staff first and having them look at it, it would come to us first.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
I think there's something lost in the translation here, but I'm not asking the Finance Committee to substitute their judgment for the judgment of our staff. Our staff are obviously going to be serving us in the capacity, in the advise and consent capacity during that too. We're not trying to separate the staff from it. We're trying to say shorten the number of people that get to talk to the staff. So I don't know if it's shorten it because it's get the decision makers in front of the staff and have the questions asked there. Okay, does that make more sense?
So if I may, would the staff be able to bring forth recommendations to us during that meeting and say, I think that Tom would be able to say this company would best suit us for the needs that we have in the next year or something like that? Are you anticipating that or?
Ed, I think that was it for you.
I don't know what to say. Really. The staff is going to guide us and answer any questions we have on it. And basically, if we want to take a poll of the staff and see which ones they prefer and why at any time during the meeting, we can certainly do that. We're free to do that. But I don't think you grasped what I was trying to get at to begin with. So basically, I want the council, the standing committee of the council, which we are, to basically have take control of the process itself with the help of the staff to work through and to produce a product at the end.
Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Rebecca. Maybe one role that staff could provide as a hybrid to what you're saying is, let's say we got 4 proposals and staff went through them first, and before you ever saw them, we determined that, one of these 4, they don't even appear to meet the qualifications. The person they're talking about handling our account has very limited background in economic development or TIF or anything like that. And then the 3 you look at will be ones where we said, yeah, any one of these 3 would probably be good. At least we've done some preliminary screening to kind of cut down on what you do, if that makes any sense. That's yet another alternative into the mix.
So if I can bring this back around, what I'm hearing here is Mr. Wagner wants this committee to be very involved in most of the steps and kind of be the driving force with assistance from staff. And then there's been just other little things brought in. Natasha has felt like maybe the staff can use their expertise, kind of bring us their recommendation, and then we can kind of go through it. So I'm just going to weigh in on one point of this. I really don't care which way it's done, but I do think that doing this at a regular finance and budget meeting is too complicated. And the reason I say that is because we use so much formality in these meetings. Everybody's got to wait to be recognized. It doesn't allow for open dialogue as some of the other meetings can do. And I think it's more conducive to have open dialogue because people will come up with questions that somebody else doesn't and be like, hey, wait a minute, on page 3 of this RFQ by this company, it doesn't match. Can we go back and forth? You know, I just feel like it's a complicated thing to try to handle at these particular meetings. I don't care what the makeup of the committee necessarily is, so much as the format of how we want to conduct those meetings. Mr. Wagner, do you have anything you want to say about that idea? As far as
I think you're close. I mean, I'm trying not to create another entity that we have to schedule and work for.
Yeah.
I don't think
if you want to, I'm out. The thing that I'm trying to get away from is we've got all these subcommittees. We've got a committee to study this, a committee to study that, and it's sometimes one alderman here, 2 aldermen over here, 3 aldermen over there, and basically everything comes.
No, I don't think you understand. I don't think that it would still be this committee. It just would not be conducted any part of it at a regular meeting.
I thought you were saying that was the problem. But
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it would be the same. It would just be this committee, like you suggested, and whatever employees are designated also, but it would just be more at not this type of meeting, right. Not held at this type of meeting.
Right.
Is that
if that's what it takes to get this through, yes.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, 2 things. First of all, if we do have a review team, I know we've had these committees like with the utilities, city jointly and all those kind of things that were multi-meetings. This would only be 1 meeting. This would be a review team literally going through and seeing if they think 2 or 1 or whoever should be brought forward.
An introductory and decide who we're going to invite, and then the invite itself.
Well, if the interview people,
right? The interview
through. Okay, yeah. The other thing I was going to say, because I do tend to agree with what you said, Rebecca. I mean, this is why I've historically, and I know Council President Wagner and I've had a debate about this, and I totally respect your view on it. But I've always thought the idea of maybe 2 members of this body and 2 staff in a room with their sleeves rolled up is a good way to pare things down, which is why I usually recommend it, even though I know that there are different views.
Okay. Whew. So we're going to try to bring this back around, and we're going to have Jessica repeat again the amendment.
The amendment is to appoint the review team as the Finance Budget Personnel Committee for the selection committee.
So that is the amendment. We're going to vote on that, okay? Any last minute questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Aye.
So Andrew, you're opposed?
I was, but I'm not. Yeah, sure, I'm opposed.
Okay. So you have that? Okay, so now we have a motion. Can you read the motion?
So the motion is to recommend council approval of a 1-month extension of the contract for the Economic Development Services of Cedar Corporation and the appointment of the Finance Budget and Personnel Committee to review and make recommendations on the selection of a firm to contract with for those services effective April 1st, 2024.
All right, that is the motion that we have. And we had a second, didn't we? Okay, somebody did motion and second that. Okay. Any questions on the full motion? I just have one fly in the ointment. Did we need to specify who else would be there besides the finance department, the finance committee for the review?
Well, whatever you approve here is going to go to the council for final approval next week. They may ask as well. It might be good to give an indication of who you're thinking of. That
Okay, so so right now, this motion does not include a full team. It only includes finance and budget. So is there anybody who would like to make an amendment to that motion? Natasha?
I move to amend that we would have the Director of Public Works, we would have the Director of Human Resources, the Finance Director, and the City Administrator as part of the team.
And the assistant, if she's here.
Oh, and the Assistant Administrator.
Right.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Just staff help.
Okay. So now we have the complete team worked into the motion, and we have so that's an amendment, right? So you made the motion, and Brian, you seconded the amendment.
And if I may, Jennifer, do you need to be there in that meeting? I named you, but it's so simple. Is that okay?
That makes sense.
It would be. Okay. Okay. So we are voting on the amendment, and the amendment was simply just adding more team members, okay, for clarification purposes, really. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Now we are going to vote on the motion, which is all of that. It's the 1 month extension and the entire team. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so that passes.
Thank you.
A very lengthy passing, but it passed.
Thank you.
Number 9, request to recommend council approval of revised city policy number 3-510, vacation, presented by Sarah Dressel, Human Resources Director. Sarah.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So in the packet, there was a copy of the memo and then the red line version of the vacation policy, as well as the clean version. I'll kind of reference the red line version a little bit, but basically, I want to give just a little bit of background, a little bit going back to the employee satisfaction survey that was completed in 2023. Excuse me. So reviewing the satisfaction survey really showcased that vacation was one of those benefits that is requested for update. Employees felt that it was inadequate, and certainly members of the Common Council have commented on updating the policy just due to the amount of requests that we get for exceptions to the current policy. So the Employee Satisfaction Committee did request to look into policies that would be budget neutral. So vacation was definitely at the top of the list as far as something to start working on. So originally this was going to be brought before the Finance Budget Committee several months ago. However, after receiving some questions and doing some initial research, I did request that it be pulled for further recommendations and analysis and review. So many of you at the time might have even asked kind of why. So I just kind of want to take some time to go through a little bit just so that in case there's questions. So policies and procedures definitely help organizations function efficiently. Good policies will make sure that we comply with laws, rules, regulations, and best practices. So policies and procedures, they give us overall, they basically reduce our liability risks and they promote consistency. So for the vacation policy, it really started with first identifying that there was an issue. We had a significant amount of requests for exceptions, like I mentioned, for candidates we were offering jobs to. We've also had requests from existing employees asking for more vacation. So once we were given the green light to explore our vacation policy and other policies, the first step was really reviewing employee information from the survey just for ideas, like what are some ideas regarding vacation. Next, it was really going out and researching what other local municipalities, so kind of our comparables, what are they doing, how are they doing it, how are we different, how are we better, how are we worse. It's a way for us to see potential options, get creative. Basically, as an example, this is where we discovered possibly converting some of the sick time into vacation time, and another municipality, Stevens Point, has done this successfully. So it's a great tool for them for recruitment. It'll be a great tool for us as well if it passes. So additionally, after that, we look at what laws are out there, what do we have to follow, how do we reduce our risk and our liability. Following that, we ask legal counsel to review it just to make sure that our language is sound, that our message is clear, that we're not putting anything into the policy that isn't sound. So once I had the rough draft for review, then it's careful examination of what possible questions could come after someone reads this policy. What are employees thinking? What does Common Council think? Things like that. So kind of trying to guess those things. And to be honest, it's definitely a critical component, just because after researching a policy, looking at all the data, staring at this policy over and over again, you can become kind of blind to things that when you're reading it for the first time, you're like, how did we miss that? So it's definitely a good review to have overall. So how long should an overall process take to create a new policy, update a new policy? It honestly depends on the scope of the policy, if it's new, if it's existing, if it's complicated, or just a simple revision. So that's kind of a little background why it's taken a little bit of time to kind of bring this forward. So for the vacation policy, we went through all these steps, revisited some of these steps multiple times, and are bringing this obviously to you tonight. So now, if we can walk through just a few of the changes, I'll be brief. The first paragraph, we really updated just to define how vacation is earned and what it means to accrue vacation throughout the year. This was somewhat unclear. It actually caused a lot of questions to come up in the process of revising this, which were good. So we've kind of revised that. In section 1, that's the eligibility section. This is a new part of the policy, but it really outlines the differences within our various employment categories with the city of Marshfield. So hopefully, again, kind of really outlining what it means for each type of employee. Section 2 is the vacation benefit schedule. This outlines basically how much vacation a non-exempt employee would have, an exempt employee would have, et cetera. So the change at a glance is that basically each group will earn more vacation, but in shorter amounts and in shorter amounts of time. So it's more vacation, but kind of paced out. So instead of waiting 7 years to gain more vacation, employees will get an increase after 3 years, after 5 years, so on. Section 3, that's regarding employees that were hired prior to 2019, May 1st of 2019. So the significance of that date is that on May 1st, 2019, that was the first time that the policy gave employees vacation on day 1, so day 1 of hire. The rest of the employees that were hired prior to May 1st, 2019, either didn't receive vacation in their first year or were required to wait at least 6 months or more to receive any vacation. So these employees were basically told that, you know, when you're hired, that vacation that they eventually receive is what they have been earning. So for example, what they are using this year for vacation is actually what they earned last year for vacation. So these employees would essentially be eligible to receive a payout for the vacation that they have in the current year, similar to what they have under the current policy. They won't be eligible for a payout of what they are earning this year for next year, because we would be giving them that on the first day of their next anniversary. And they would be eligible for any earned vacation that they have this, you know, the year of their anniversary of the new vacation amounts, which that is a mouthful. This sounds complicated, but we're definitely going to create some FAQs just to hopefully provide full examples with more detail that just don't really fit putting into the policy. The FAQ will be in addition to the policy, so it will be an add-on, and it'll be something that would be consistently updated based on the questions that we're receiving. Section 4 and Section 5 are mostly updates of verbiage to just provide more explanation when it comes to how vacation is computed, how requests are taken and approved or denied. So just kind of cleaning up that language. Section 6 is new to the policy, and it involves the potential conversion of sick leave into vacation leave. I mentioned earlier, this is something that Stevens Point already does. This does have some requirements. It would require 5 years of service. They could convert 6 days of vacation annually. But the stipulation with that is you have to at least have 10 days remaining of sick leave to be able to use for sick leave purposes. So those rules would kind of just ensure that people still have sick leave to use in the case of needing it. There's also information and rules around what happens if there's a resignation or a retirement that occurs, if days haven't been used, as well as an annual deadline and a process for making that request that are a little bit different, obviously, than just regular vacation on your anniversary. Section 7 is regarding vacation payouts at termination of employment. It does have some updates to language as well as additional changes. So some of those changes include requiring non-exempt and exempt employees to provide a 2-week notice. Division and department heads required a 4-week notice in order to be eligible for a payout. So it has verbiage in there about that. Additionally, there's some options to not take an actual payout on your final paycheck, but instead, if you have a PEP account already, if you're a department that has PEP account that you're putting money into, you could instead take that, that payout and put it into your PEP account. Section 8 defines minimum and maximum vacation lengths and kind of discusses increments that can be used by employees. Section 9 is an update to language and criteria regarding the use of vacation and vacation carryover. Basically, 40 hours of vacation is an automatic in the system now, which is really nice. So if you have 40 hours or less of vacation that you have left over that you're not using by your anniversary date, the system automatically converts that into the next year. So you can use it throughout the year, following year. What we did put in is, if, for example, let's say a department head has had a really busy year and has an additional 40 hours or more, they can convert 40 hours more into, or not convert, carry over 40 more hours. But those would be a separate bucket that we would be creating into the HRIS, and basically they would have to use those within 90 days. So again, it would be something systematic. It wouldn't be extra work or anything like that, but we would just be encouraging that they use that within 90 days of their anniversary date. And then section 10 is basically updating the language regarding record keeping and things like that. So some of it was legal stuff from our employment law group. So as my memo mentioned, there are a few items that will need to be considered if the policy does move forward to Common Council. The first is that we're recommending that the policy be effective as of April 1st. This will help us facilitate change in the system and just make sure that we have correctly allocated the right amount of vacation based on the employee's anniversary date. So just really making sure we have our numbers right. And then as mentioned, documentation will be required from employees just so that everyone is on the same page going into it. They know how much they're going to get, that type of thing. Then also, grandfathered employees will receive documentation to sign off on regarding the freezing of the amounts of vacation that qualify for payout as outlined in the policy. And then sick time conversion, it's recommended instead of 6 days of sick leave to be converted, that only 5 days be allowed in the year. This is just due to keeping the time frame of needing to use it by January 31st. So it would just be shrinking that by 1 day for 1 year. And then lastly, as I mentioned, just having that FAQ section at the end of the policy, just with specific questions and concerns that have been brought up, just so that, obviously we can try and be as transparent as possible and just answer any questions that there might be. So at this time, I'm recommending that the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee recommend approval of Vacation Policy 3.510 for approval to Common Council, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Sarah. Very thorough.
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Andrew. Questions from the committee? I have one. Yeah. Mine's really simple. Under section 9, letter B of the red-lined version, I just had a question only because of something you said and how it's written. Sure. I thought that you said it was for department heads only, but it looks like it's for anybody as approved by the department head.
Yeah, I'm sorry. When I was saying it, I was just giving them as an example for an example.
So it's for everybody as approved by their department head.
Correct.
That's what I thought you meant, but I just wanted to clarify.
No,
that was my only question.
Thank you for that.
Anybody else? Natasha?
What would you say would be the most significant change that this policy has for employees who are grandfathered in?
as far as like how it is for them right now. So, a lot. Well, I guess it depends like on how you look at it. So, I would say that, I mean, obviously, we are requiring for them that where right now there's no requirement for payout at termination to have to work your full 4 weeks. Or that once your last day is your last day, you would get paid out for anything. So there's definitely some additional restrictions. I mean, the converting of sick leave to vacation leave is a benefit, but also I would argue that people that qualify for it probably are at a level where they're going to have a harder time being able to convert. So, I mean, there is that too, but it is a nice benefit to have. I'm trying to think what else. I think this was tough because at first this whole section didn't exist. And because of some of the questions that have been brought up, we took a look at kind of historically, like why we were at where we were at, because originally my main question was, you know, when did it change? How did it change? You know, why are accruals not accruals? We said it was accruals, but it's not accruals, like all that kind of stuff. So I definitely would say that with the way the policy stands right now, I would say that there are probably still frustrated employees that are being grandfathered in. But the change is, in my opinion, needed at this point.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me how many grandfathered employees that's affecting?
It's approximately 87 employees. What we're looking at, though, is I just want to make sure that that's accurate. So part of the reason why we're pushing it out to April 1st is we really need to evaluate based on, there might be some employees who were an exception where they did get vacation right away instead of having to wait. I know of one employee right now that is the case, so.
87 is shocking. That seems more like the majority than the exception.
So it sort of is, but in a sense, it's no different than the way we're doing it right now. We're just putting more restrictions around it. They're all getting paid out, you know, what they earn right now. So, but it is, I mean, 87, it is a significant number.
Anybody else?
So just to clarify, what would potentially upset the grandfathered people is that, let's see, if I was a grandfathered person and I say I want to quit June 15th, in the old policy, I could really quit May 15th, but use my vacation time for 4 weeks and still get health insurance and all of that. But now, under this policy, I would need to May 15th give my 4-week notice and work until June 15th in order to get my vacation. Is that correct?
So within there, the policy basically says that you have to work at least 2 weeks of that 4-week notice, or at least 1 week of your 2-week notice, depending on what your position is. And right, that doesn't exist right now.
So it just means people need to give their notice an extra month earlier or an extra time. Is that basically what would have to happen?
So it would just basically they would have to make a decision of, when they would want their official last day to be on the books.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right. Do we have a motion yet?
You do. We have a motion by Mr. Varsho and a second by Mr. Rigel.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. We'll be voting on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Number 10, response to request from Council Member Tompkins regarding the city's cash on hand goals presented by Jennifer Selensky, Finance Director.
Hi again. So at the January 16th meeting, Alderperson Tompkins inquired if we had a cash goal for cash on hand. Formally, the city does not have a documented cash on hand policy. So how our cash is received really is set out in statutes. The city's primary source of cash inflow is property taxes. Statutes collect that December, January, and August. The second largest inflow of cash is from our shared revenues, which the state pays us annually in July and November. And then our third largest inflow is derived from general transportation aids, which we receive quarterly. On the outflow side, the majority of the city's cash outflows occur in January and February when we pay our other taxing jurisdictions their share of the property taxes. And then again in March when we have most of our principal and interest payments scheduled for our debt service. And then again, we have cash outflow in the fall after our construction projects invoices are coming due. So essentially how the state sort of allows for the timing of our receipts does match up well with how we actually spend the cash. We do have investment policy 4.95 for reference, in which we try to maximize the cash that we do have. So we pool that cash unless it's in a certain restricted or special fund. It's all pooled together, and it is either kept in our local bank or in the state's local government investment pool. So the city staff monitors the balances in our bank to make sure that we have enough to pay our bills, and then and meet its restricted balances, and then any excess is transferred over to that local government investment pool. We do have other allowable investments, generally low risk type of investments that are intended to maintain our principal balance. It's for convenience that we use the local government investment pool. And then what I also wanted to explain as well, we don't have an official cash on hand policy. We do have a fund balance policy, and that's really where we try to make sure that we have an adequate reserve for our operating needs. And as of now, that's 25% of our general operating expenditures. And we're right at that minimum level. So any dips in that balance would need to be addressed either in the next budget cycle, or if significant in that year, where staff would come back and ask for budget amendments to decrease budgets in order to keep our fund balance policy in line. So with that, are there any questions, concerns, recommendations?
Thank you, Jennifer. Go ahead, Natasha.
I just want to say thank you for throughout the year giving us these little educational sessions.
Is there anything else? Okay, so that was for information only, so no action to take on that. Number 11, suggested items for future agendas. Steve.
I have three. Thank you, Rebecca.
Three.
Yeah.
Greedy.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'll make sense when I start saying it, okay? If you give me a chance. This was a response, one that Jennifer just brought up to two requests that Natasha had made at the previous meeting. And the second of those was about turnover, looking for information about staff turnover. And Sarah is going to present a report on that at our next meeting on the 20th of February. So that's one item. Another one that Chairperson Spiros had brought up even before that, and that is about overtime and how we're able to track that with respect to EMS and other things that we do. Been working on it at the staff level. Jordan's taken kind of a lead role and working with Jennifer and fire and EMS personnel and others. We're looking at doing a presentation on the 27th of February to the full council. As that's being wrapped up and pulled together now, that would be on the 27th to the entire body. And then the other item I just want to make note of that you'll be seeing later on, maybe not till the spring, but policy number 4.900 deals with debt, and we've been talking about that a little bit at staff level. There's a couple changes we'd like to make. There's a legislation going through the state right now, possibly going to be signed soon by the governor that will change that a little bit. So that'll probably be coming up. But in the meantime, just to let you know, you'll be getting a memo from staff about the fact that there's an item that ties in the policy 4.900 to the CIP. So we'll just be clarifying a point on that with you as well that we want to make sure you understand. But the policy change itself won't be till sometime in the spring. That's all I have.
Okay, Steve, anybody else? So I do have one thing that I would like to request. I would like to get a presentation from the finance department on zero balance budgeting. What that actually means, how that could look if we switched to that sort of a method, and how that would occur if we did do that. Anything else? All right, I will take a motion for adjournment from Natasha and from Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like
Aye.
sign? We are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.